Hi, I'm Fernando, and I'm on an epic quest to recreate NASA's vehicle assembly building here in Minecraft, 1-to-1 size with full and accurate internal details. Currently, we're working on a side quest, researching and designing the various components of the Space Shuttle and supporting vehicles. The goal of this is to have all of the pieces to put inside High Bay 3, where we can make a historically accurate recreation of the Space Shuttle being assembled with the various work platforms and all its details in place. The external tank is the main structural support of the Space Shuttle. It's the central piece that holds everything together and also has various fuel tanks inside that are used by the main shuttle engines. After about 8.5 minutes, all of its propellant is used and the tank is detached and falls back down to Earth where it burns up in the atmosphere. So, we know the size and dimensions, we know what it looks like, we know what's inside it, let's build it. Okay, so the external tank is really 3 different tanks of fuel. The bottom fuel is liquid hydrogen, and you can see this is the biggest of the tanks. It's got the anti-swirl buffers and the anti-vortex buffers. And down here there's the fuel pipe that goes through, because this thing attaches to the external space shuttle, and the external space shuttle is the thing that's got the engines. So it just wants to be able to feed fuel out through that pipe from that tank. So, as we go up, we find the next little area. Now, the next area is helium. Now, helium's a really good gas to use because it doesn't react with anything. And if there is a little leak in either of these tanks, you don't want anything to explode. So they really just have this as a safety layer and also to flush out any of the remaining fuel, so they use every last bit. Then we have the liquid oxygen tank, which is 2.5 times smaller, but actually 3 times heavier than the hydrogen tank. And it also has anti-swirl and anti-vortex baffles. And finally, at the top, we have the vent hood, which is also known as the beanie cap. The external tank is delivered to the VAB in a single piece, and a specialised vehicle is used to transport it, called the External Tank Assembly Transporter. I found a nice photo of it inside the VAB from STS Mission 118, and this gives us something to build in the VAB, and also the challenge of rebuilding the external tank lying down in a horizontal position. So let's go. Okay. So we know how the external tank is moved around once it arrives at the VAB, but let's have a think about how it actually gets here. The external tank is constructed in the Michoud Assembly Facility in New Orleans, and it has to get all the way across to Cape Canaveral, Florida, where the VAB is. So NASA decided the best way to do this would be to go via the ocean, which means they needed a specialised vessel. In 1999, NASA designed Pegasus Barge to transport the giant external tanks of the space shuttles the 1,500 kilometre journey across the ocean in various waterways. Being a barge, Pegasus doesn't have any engines to drive itself. It does have 3 200 kilowatt generators on board to power its lights, and it does have a bridge which controls steering and lets it communicate with the tugboats. It also has some crew quarters for people to sleep in. I found a really neat 360-degree controllable video from NASA. So this lets us explore below deck, so you can see we've come downstairs here, and as we pan around you can see various things. So these, I think, are the engines for controlling the bilge pumps. We'll talk more about them a bit later. This room looks to be the electric generators, so those 3 200 kilowatt generators we talked about earlier, and you can see those bilge pump generators out the door there. And looking around and looking up, we can see some of the extraction tubes and vents for the diesel generators. Another resource I found on YouTube was a tour inside Pegasus Barge, where they actually poked their camera around a corner, which is really cool because we can see the top of those stairs we were looking at before and just really understand where bits and pieces are and how they link together. We know how big it is, we know what it looks like. Let's build it up. I thought it was fitting to reuse Liberty Star to tow Pegasus Barge, so let's get this thing back to the VAB and take a look at it. Okay, so we're back at the VAB. Let's start our tour at the back of Pegasus Barge. So these big gates open and close to let things on and off. And all the way down the cargo deck are these yellow attachment points for fixing different types of cargo. Now underneath the deck there is a series of different ballast tanks. So these are tanks that can fill with water or empty out, and that's used to help balance out the buoyancy of the barge. So if you're carrying something really heavy, you want it to be a bit more buoyant, always to keep that water level the same. Moving down to the front, you can see there's vents for taking fumes out from below deck and pushing them outside. Around here you can see that sneaky view we saw on YouTube. Through here we have the sleeping quarters for the 6 crew for the 7-day journey that it takes to get to the VAB. And then down here we can see some of the engines and workshop areas. So this is where we had that 360 view. These are the engines for the ballast tanks to take the water on and off, and then through here we've got those 3 electrical generators. Let's go up to the bridge. Something that I found really neat was that the bridge is actually capable of controlling the tugboats when being pushed. So those tugboats can actually be driven from right here. So that's going to be it for today. Hopefully you've learned something and enjoyed this video. If you have any feedback or ideas or encouragement, just put them in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe. It really does mean a lot to me. And have a great day.